Sussex and Oxford University senior researcher and social anthropologist Amber Huff. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So let's start with what is the significance of the Turkey's war on the Kurds in Iraq and how have they been able to wage it?
I think that Turkey's aggression in Iraq has to be understood as really the continuation, but also the escalation of the Turkish state's long campaign of violence against Kurds. And this is related to President Erdogan's broader imperialist ambitions. I see the repeat of favored tactics, for example, used in Diyarbakir in the 1990s and Afrin more recently, of displacing populations of Kurds and their neighbors in violent campaigns, destroying the base of livelihood, and pursuing Turkification of these regions through resettlement and militarization. I think the campaign in Iraq is particularly important because Turkey's seeking to deepen tensions and divisions between the KDP and the PKK, and then use these divisions to its tactical advantage, as well as to feed state propaganda within Turkey. And this is a classic tactic in wars of colonization all over the world to divide and conquer. I think, just to state it simply, Erdogan's ambition relies on violence and the idea of a weak and divided Kurdistan, and he wants to make it untenable for alliances to form that could strengthen resistance to domination across the regions.
Thank you. Why is the KDP trying to provoke confrontations with the PKK, as you mentioned as well? And what role is Turkey playing in this situation?
I think this is a very complicated situation because so many different actors are involved and have their own goals, and there are so many longstanding tensions. But really, Turkey, I think, is taking advantage of political and ideological tensions and factionalization. There are allegations that the KDP cooperates with Turkey right now because it too wants to weaken the YBS, while others say that the KDP is in a situation of being compelled to cooperate with Turkey because they've run up against a rock in a hard place. So, regardless, I think listening to experts on the ground is good, and some have explained that Turkey uses the KDP as a weapon against the PKK, getting them to provoke confrontation with PKK units in an effort to disrupt communications and supply lines. And the objective of this is to leave the PKK units isolated from each other, restrict their movement, cut them off from material support, etc. And ultimately, what this does is it plays into the Turkish state's ambitions to divide and conquer, to weaken resistance by manipulating tensions and creating conflict between the KDP and the PKK.
Thank you. What responsibility does the European Union and Britain have for Abdullah Öcalan's ongoing imprisonment, and what should be done about this?
Abdullah Ocalan has been held in isolation, as your viewers will know, in violation of his basic human rights for 22 years on the prison island of Imrali in Turkey. The official position of the leadership of the EU and the UK is complicity. It's feigned, convenient ignorance for a number of reasons, but I think particularly so that the flow of arms to Turkey from the UK and the EU can continue. In this case, I think this complicity, this silence, is responsible for Öcalan's continuing imprisonment. Despite what the Turkish state says, Öcalan has been a powerful voice for dialogue and a peaceful solution for the Kurdish question for years. And I think that people need to continue to challenge the narrative that comes from the Turkish state, continue to raise awareness, and put pressures on members of parliament and the media in the UK and the EU, as well as getting information to members of the public. Many people are not aware of the situation but would be enraged by it. But this can change and has been changing. And one way, if people don't know how to get involved, one way is to continue organizing, to join campaigns such as the International Freedom Will Prevail campaign that's currently being organized and is putting together mass sit ins in Europe. Um, Also writing, pieces for newspapers if you have that ability. These sorts of things are very important.
W- Why do you think Europe is still keeping silence against Turkey's war crimes, especially their usage of chemical weapons, as you are aware of it last few weeks? The usage of chemical weapons on the war on the Kurds has been raised. So, how would you like to comment on that? What would you like to say? Why do you think Europe keeping silence?
I think it's really appalling Europe's silence on these things. And I think one reason is, and I've written about this in the past, is that uh, Turkey is appealing to growing nationalist sentiment in Europe, by claiming to hold back the tide of refugees from the Syrian civil war and other conflicts in the Middle East. And so this is kind of like uh, Turkey leveraging growing nationalism in Europe and feeding fears to get governments to remain silent despite the fact that they're committing war crimes.
Thank you. Lastly, do you think delisting the PKK from terrorist organizations will also bring freedom for Öcalan and peace to the region? How would you like to comment on that?
Yes, I think that delisting the PKK is a necessary step toward peace in the region, and toward the freedom for Ocalan, because the supporting the listing of the PKK as a terrorist organization in Europe and in the UK um, justifies the continuing imprisonment of Ocalan, and also is used to justify propaganda in Turkey and campaigns of terror against civilians. Um, and I think we only need to really, look to emerging evidence to justify this. For example, the recent United Kingdom all-party parliamentary group on Kurdistan in Turkey and Syria report is very important and provides conclusions based on documented evidence that, rather than what Turkey claims around, the PKK being a terrorist group and inciting violence, that the treatment of the Kurdish people and of elected representatives is one of the greatest threats to democracy in Turkey and the wider region. So, I mean, and there's, growing evidence from a lot of sources around this. So I think we really need to demand the delisting of the PKK and freedom for Ocalan as a necessary set of steps toward peace.
Dear Amber Huff, Sussex and Oxford University Senior Researcher and Social Anthropologist, thanks for joining us. Thank you for your valuable comments today.